Hello, and welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Shauna.
I'm Leslie.
And today we are bringing you another one of those commander deck deep dives into the pre-cons that have come out for Bloomborough. I can't say it today.
Yep.
We're pretty excited about this set, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well. So we're going to use this video to break down all the cards in the deck, to tell you what this deck is meant to do and how to play it wisely. And if you stick around with us until the end, we will give you some ideas on how maybe you could tweak this deck and make it even better. So Leslie is going to tell us which deck this is and all about the commanders.
So this deck is called Family Matters, and it is exactly what it is described as. It's all about building a family. So it's interesting that Wizards decided to do two token decks in the same set. If you go watch our Squirreled Away video, you'll see the other token deck. Now that deck is mainly built on what happens when your tokens die. This one is built mainly on what happens when your tokens enter. So still building or getting lots of tokens, taking advantage of them, giving them flying. So that's another little evasion thing that it's got going for it. So you're just going to want to build your army and swing and get in for as much damage as you can. Our commander is Zinnia, the Valley Voice, and she is flying herself. She gets +X+0, where X is the number of other creatures you control with base power of 1, which should be everything because this deck gives +X+0 and doesn't increase their butts that often. You also don't want to put counters on things because you want them to be 1 base power, which will become evident why later. Creature spells you cast have offspring. So this is a fun little offspring too. This is a fun new mechanic that's part of Bloomborough. Basically, you're paying 2 and you get an additional creature that is an exact copy of this creature. And it has the same mana cost, interestingly enough. If you do, the creature is a 1/1 token copy of it. So instead of it being, say, a 4/5 like our secondary commander, it's still an Arthur Marigold Knight, but it is a 4/5 instead. Speaking of Arthur Marigold Knight, that is our second option for a commander. It is 2 red, blue, and white, and it is a 4/5 with haste, which is fantastic already. But whenever Arthur Marigold Knight and at least 1 other creature attack, you get to look at the top 6 cards of your library. You can put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. So it's a collected company, pretty much, tapped and attacking. And then you put the rest of them at the bottom of your library in random order. And then you get to return that creature to its owner's hand at the end of combat. So if it survives, it just goes back in your hand and you can cast it and take advantage of its other enter the battlefield effects if it has any. So
Cool.
Lots of really cool, fun things that are going to happen with this deck. But before we get into the cards, we're going to break down some of the statistics for you.
All right. So this deck has a pretty low mana curve. There are a lot of cards in 3 and under. So we have 4 at 0, 19 at 2, which makes it have a great big stack there, and then 12 at 3, and 10 at 4, 9 at 5, and 8 at 6 and up. So it's a very aggressive mana cost. So you're going to be able to play things pretty quickly. As far as the color breakdown goes, there are 8 multicolor, 8 colorless, 21 white, 16 blue, and 9 red. So a little light on the red there. So then we look at the card types, and there are 36 creatures, so lots and lots of little creatures. Of course, it makes sense. You want to make lots of little token copies of them. 13 sorcerers and instances, 3 enchantments, and 9 artifacts. And then there is the 1 planeswalker that is in all of these decks, which is very fun. And then there are 38 lands in these decks, which is crazy as far as land goes, but That's okay. It gives you room to grow. Yeah. So Leslie's going to tell us a little bit about the formula that we use to evaluate the decks when we do these videos.
Absolutely. So we believe there are 5 main areas that are really important to building a balanced commander deck. Ramp, removal, card draw, high impact, and other support. 15 ramp, 15 removal, around 13 card draw. So those are all around the same. 12 high impact, and then 10 that kind of support your overall win condition. As far as land goes, anywhere between 34 and 36 is good. 35 is probably where you want to fall for most decks. If it has a low mana curve like this one, you could probably get away with a 34. You don't know that until you play it though. So that's how we're going to evaluate this deck. We're going to kind of show you what cards we believe fit into those categories so that you know why they're there. And then if you wait till the end, we're going to do some tweaks. So our first section is
The ramp and mana generators. So the formula calls for 15, as Leslie just mentioned. The deck only has about 10, but that's okay. This, like I said, this deck is pretty low as far as mana cost goes, so you don't need a lot of ramp in this deck. So, of course, this deck starts with the Arcane Signet and Soul Rings, the awesome cards that get included in all of these decks that add Arcane Signet adds 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity, and the Soul Ring is 2 colorless. That is always useful.
mm-hmm. And then we have 2 stones that are in this, Mind Stone and Fellwar Stone. Mind Stone taps for 1 colorless, and then you can sacrifice it later and draw a card. Fellwar Stone just adds 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. So very versatile stones.
And then we also have 3 signets, which is really handy for the 3 colors. So the Azoria Signet, which is the blue and white, taps for blue and white. The Boros Signet, which taps for the red and white, and the Izzet Signet, which taps for the blue and red. So it's really great to have those in here to help you play all the colors that you need, or have all the colors you need.
And for all you dog lovers out there, the Loyal Warhound is here. He is a 3/1 and he costs 2. He has vigilance, and when he enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more land than you get to search for a basic land or basic plains, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So he just goes and fetches a land for you. Good boy.
And you need lots of plains with this deck. As you saw, there's a lot of white cards. Ornithopter of Paradise. It's nice to have that one here. It's a little artifact flyer that is just a 0/2, but his main job is to add 1 mana of any color.
I'm actually surprised you don't see that in more commander decks, because it's just a nice little flyer that taps for mana. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Solemn Simulacrum for 4 is a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. As an added bonus, this also fits in the card draw category, because when it dies, you get to draw a card.
Yeah. Speaking of card draw, we're on to the card draw section. The formula calls for 13. The deck has about 14, which is going to help you get to the cards that you need to play and run people over with all your little tokens everywhere. The first one we have is the Bident of Thysa, a little legendary artifact for 2 and 2 blue that says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. You're going to have lots of creatures doing combat damage, hopefully. And you can pay 1 and a blue and tap the Bident, and creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able. So that way you can make them attack, and so then they're wide open for you to attack them.
For those people that are just sitting back and not attacking. Fortune Teller's Talent. This is an enchantment that's a class. So classes are pretty fun. They start out at level 1, and then you get to level them up each turn, and they gain abilities. So this one comes in, and you may look at the top card of your library at any time. Knowledge is key. 4 mana for level 2. As long as you've cast a spell this turn, you may play cards from the top of your library. So now you can look at them and play them if you want. And then you can pay 3 to get it to level 3. Spells you cast from anywhere other than your hand cost 2 less to cast. Now it makes it really easy to cast it from the top of your library. So fun little knowledge and extra card.
Mm-hmm. Then we're on to a wonderful card called Pull from Tomorrow. It's for X and 2 blue. That says draw X cards, then discard a card. It's a great way to dig through your deck.
Easy. Rowdy Researchers. This one costs 7. So that is a thing. However, it costs 1 less to cast for each creature that attacked this turn. So this is one you're going to want to wait till your second main phase to cast, and you're going to attack. If you attack with 6 things, then it actually only costs you 1, but you can figure out how much mana you have, but you get to draw 3 cards. So those fairies are going to help you out.
Yeah. Chart of Course is another card that rewards you attacking, and it is for 1 and a blue. It says draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless you attack this turn. Great little way to get cards.
Mm-hmm. And new art for it. So cute. Mm-hmm. Cut a Deal. I think this is new art too, with all those little paws.
I think so.
Each opponent draws a card, then you draw a card for each opponent who drew a card this way. So you get however many opponents worth of cards, and they each get a card. So it's a little bit of a, hey, I'm going to help you out, but you get more in the deal.
Yeah. Aether Channeler. Yeah, that's right. 2/1 for 2 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, you choose 1. So it's nice and versatile. You can make a bird creature token with flying. There are quite a few birds in this deck. That might be handy. There's also return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So a little bit of removal there, temporary removal. Or you can draw a card, which is what you're probably going to do with this card.
And then Circuit Mender, it enters and you gain 2 life, which is kind of irrelevant, but when Circuit Mender leaves the battlefield, you get to draw a card. So a little bit of good things when it comes in, but you're okay with it dying, so you can use it as a blocker and let it die so you can draw a card.
Yeah. Cloud Blazer. This is a 2/2 for 3 and a white and a blue. Has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and draw a card. So it's like 3 cards in 1. It's nice.
Yeah. And then Curiosity Crafter for 4 is a 3/3. It has flying. You have no maximum hand size, which I think will be relevant in this deck because it does have a good amount of card draw in it. And whenever a creature token that you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. So this one in particular, whenever a creature token, which you're going to be creating a lot of, does damage, that's every single one that does damage. You get to draw. If 10 do damage, you draw 10 cards. So
yeah. Then there is the illusory ambusher. Has flash, so 4/1, and when it is dealt damage, draw that many cards. This is a great one to put in there to suddenly block something that's big of theirs, and you get a whole bunch of cards from. It'll die, but that's okay.
yeah, exactly. You have 4 cards.
Yeah.
Inspiring Overseer for 3. It's a 2/1. It has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So again, at that entering the battlefield effect that happens.
Yeah. Polywog Prodigy. This has Evolve, a 1/3 for 2. So Evolve means that whenever another creature enters the battlefield that has a higher power than this one, you get to put a 1/1 counter on this creature. And whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell with mana value less than Polywog's power, you get to draw a card. So, yeah, could be getting bigger, and you get to draw cards.
Love that Evolve.
Yeah.
Spirited Companion, another nice little doggo for 2. It's a 1/1. When it enters, you draw a card.
Simple as that.
Could enter twice, right?
Yeah, flash it in and out. Oh, well, yeah, I guess you're making a token copy of it.
Well, and there's that commander that allows you to play it, and then it goes into your hand. Or that card that's not a commander. Yeah. So those are going to happen twice if you happen to play them from the top of your library.
Into the battlefild, awesomeness. Then we're on to our removal section. The formula calls for 15. The deck has about 13, so it's pretty good. Aetherize, this is a really good blue removal spell for 3 and a blue. It's a little instant that says return all attacking creatures to their owner's hands. Go away.
Yeah. Excuse me, you want to attack me? Well, let me respond to that. Path to Exile, a very standard card in a lot of white decks. Basically, you exile target creature. Its controller gets to search for a basic land, but that's okay. You got rid of their thing.
Leslie likes to play cards like this one, rapid hybridization. For one, a little instant that basically says destroy target creature, and it can't be regenerated. And that creature's controller gets a 3/3 frog lizard. So,
I
you
like
know,
to give gifts to people, all
yeah,
right? It's
exactly.
just nice.
Exactly.
Elephants, frogs, beasts,
But removal for
oxes.
one is pretty amazing,
Yes,
actually.
it's actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
Calamity of Cinders. This is a beautiful little card for 5 and 2 red. Convoke, which means you can use creatures to help you cast it. So each creature that you tap to cast it counts for one colorless. However, you can also use red creatures to count for red.
Mm-hmm.
Calamity of Cinders deals 6 damage to each untapped creature. So that
Woo.
benefits you for attacking with everything. Everything's tapped and they
Or
won't be
you,
tapped. And
yeah.
so do that in your second main phase and kill all
You
their
tap things
things.
to convoke it too, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Good
Good
board wipe.
point. Good board wipe.
Speaking of board wipes, here's another one. Dusk to Dawn. Basically, this card is you play both sides. The first side is the sorcery. You destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. And then you have this card sitting in your graveyard on its side. That's why the card is on its side. And it says Aftermath. So you can cast this from your graveyard for its Aftermath. For its cost there, and return all creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So destroy everything and then bring back your little guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to exile the card after that, but you get to use it twice.
Yeah. And you get to decide on the timing of that. If you decide that
Mm-hmm.
you want to do it the same turn, that's great. Or it can just wait and sit there. So that's
Yep.
great. Martial Coup, X and 2 white. Create X1/1 white creatures tokens. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So make it 5 or more and do a board wipe.
Yeah. Stolen by the Fae. This one is an X and 2 blue sorcery that says return target creature with mana value X to its owner's hand. You create X1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with flying.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
And then time wipe, return a creature that you control to its owner's hand, then destroy all creatures. So that's just going to save maybe your commander or something that's doing really good things for you. But sometimes you just got to kill everything. Or they've done a one-sided board wipe and you're just going to get rid of their stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hanged Executioner. This is a little 1/1 flying spirit for 2 and a white that when it enters the battlefield, it creates a 1/1 flying spirit creature token with flying. And you can pay 4 and exile this guy and exile a target creature.
Yeah. And remember, that's like 3 cards in a row now that we've talked about that create a whole bunch of little 1/1 creatures that also are removal. And a reminder that your commander gets plus X plus 0, where X is the number of other creatures that you control with a base power of 1. So every time you put these 1/1 creatures on, now your commander gets +1 +0 for each of those creatures. And it has flying. So you're likely going to do commander damage to kill people. It's a good way to...
from experience.
I speak from experience. Don't be afraid to focus on someone and kill them with commander
Attack
damage.
with your commander.
Yeah. Inferno Titan for 6 is a 6/6. It has an ability that is red. Inferno Titan gets +1 +0 until the end of turn, where when Inferno Titan enters the battlefield, so another enter the battlefield attack trigger, or attacks, it deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets.
Nice. Junkwinder. This is a 5/6 serpent for 5 and 2 blue that has affinity for tokens. So it costs 1 less for each token you control. So potentially you're only spending 2 on it because you got lots of tokens out there.
Yeah.
Whenever a token enters the battlefield under your control, you get to tap target non-land permanent opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So you could potentially tap down quite a few of their creatures because you're creating quite a few tokens all the time.
And you don't have to focus just on one person as well. So sometimes people think, oh, well, I have to choose Shauna for all of those creatures because I chose her for one of them. If you see that there's, your friend across the table has a card that you want to tap down, and then the person beside you also has a card you want to tap down, you can choose different people's creatures for sure.
Yeah.
Siege Gang Commander for 5 is a 2/2. When Siege Gang Commander enters, you get to create 3/1/1 red goblin creature tokens. You can then pay 1 in a red and sacrifice a goblin, and it deals 2 damage to any target, which is nice because any target can also be someone's face.
Skyclave Apparition. This is a great little core spirit for 1 and 2 white. It's a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-token permanent you don't control with mana value 4 or less. And when it leaves the battlefield, the exile card's owner creates an XX blue illusion where X is the mana value of the card. So it's just a great little removal. It gets rid of their annoying little thing.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're on to the high impact. The formula calls for 6. We actually only think that the formula calls for 12. We actually think the deck only has about 6 really high impact cards. That is one of the downfalls, but it is kind of more highly tribal, so there's a lot more support, which we'll get to in a second. However, we get to talk about Elspeth, the Sun's champion, who is, again, I will just say, I love this set. I love the planeswalkers in this set. Look at her. She's so adorable. She's giving me Secrets of Nim or Redwall vibes. Anyways, I digress. She is a 4 loyalty planeswalker. She comes in and you can +1 her right away and create 3/1/1 white soldier creature tokens. You can do -3 to destroy all creatures with a power 4 or greater, which isn't going to be yours. And then you can get an emblem that creatures you control get +2/+2 and have flying, which hopefully you can get to because that is awesome. And I think Shauna mentioned in one of our other videos, you can have multiple emblems. And then that +2/+2 would stack twice or 3 times, however many emblems. They won't let you get 3 emblems, but they might let you get 2.
Unless you have some way to proliferate like crazy or something. But,
yeah.
Agate Instigator. This is a cute little lizard rogue for 1/3. It's a 1/3 for 1 in the red. And you have Offspring 1 and a red on this one too. So you can pay that extra 1 in a red to have this creature create a token copy of it, a little 1/1 token copy. And whenever another creature you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. So you get 2 of those little guys out there and you're playing all sorts of creatures, making all sorts of tokens. You are doing a lot of damage to opponents' faces with that little guy. So he potentially is going to be very big for you in this deck.
Well, and a reminder, going back to our commander again, our commander says that all creatures have offspring. So that's very relevant for all of these ones that enter the battlefield and do something, because you can pay an extra 2, get another one, and then get that second trigger. Like for this one, Angel of Ruins, which is 7 for a 5/7 with flying. Angel of Ruins enters the battlefield, exile up to 2 target artifacts or enchantments. So you would get that twice if you decided to or could offspring her. Of course, the offspring just is a 1/1, and that's fine because you just have a 1/1 flying angel that now also exiles 2 target artifacts or enchantments. So
Luminous Broodmoth. This is a 3/4 flying for 2 and 2 white. And whenever a creature you control without flying dies, you return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it. So then suddenly it's now a flyer as well. So your Sun Titan that Leslie's going to talk about next is a big flyer. No, it's dead.
And a token.
And it entered again.
Benefit of tokens. Sun Titan for 4 and 2 white is a 6/6 with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with a mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's going to do a lot of work for you, which is why it's high impact. And again, if you get 2 of them out on the battlefield, that's even better.
Yeah. And remember how there are so many cards in this deck that are under 3 mana cost, right? We talked about that at the beginning of the video. You're going to have a lot of targets for this to use. And speaking of a really powerful little 2 mana cost card, 1/3 Tetsuko. This is a legendary one, though, so the legendary rule applies. So you wouldn't want to make a copy of it. But creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. Suddenly, everything is able to get in for damage. Woohoo!
Mm-hmm. That one's going to be a really key card, I think, in this deck.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you'll find it and get it out. Maybe you can put some tutors in here to go get
Yeah.
it. But that brings us to our support section. These are cards that are going to help your overall wing condition,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe a little bit conditional. Formula calls for 10. Our deck has what we figure about 18. First one is Combat Celebrant for 3. It's a 4/1. If it hasn't been exerted this turn, you may exert it when it attacks, and if you do, you get to untap all other creatures you control and have another combat phase after this one. So it gets you an additional combat. Basically, what exerted means is you just have to put a little token, a reminder thing on it, and then you don't get to untap it for its next turn. So it's like too tired from all the work it did giving you a second combat, and so it's not going to untap on your second turn.
Jazzle Goldmane. This is a little 4/4 cat warrior for 2 and 2 white that has first strike, which is really nice. And then you can pay 3 and 2 white, and attacking creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. What?
Crazy. Helm of the Host. This is going to help you get copies of things. For 4, at the beginning of your combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except the token isn't legendary. An equipped creature is legendary. That token gains haste. So if you wanted to put this on, say, Tetsuko, then you could start creating a whole bunch of extra Tetsukos just in case they decide to get rid of your Tetsuko.
Echoing Assault. It's a little enchantment for 4 and 2, or sorry, 4 and a red. I was distracted by the cuteness of this little mouse.
Yes, I know, right?
Creature tokens you have menace. What the? Whenever you attack a player, choose target non-token creature that's attacking that player. Create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1. The token enters tapped and attacking that player. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next step.
So as you can see, there's a lot of like, you're giving your
Everywhere.
tokens flying, you're giving your tokens menace, you're making them unblockable. Lots of ways to kind of help you get in for damage. So don't be afraid to swing with everything
You're
and swing
attacking
hard.
with this deck.
You're attacking with this deck to kill them fast. Murmuration for 5. It's birds you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. And at the beginning of your end step, for each spell you've cast this turn, you get to create a 1/2 blue bird creature token with flying named Stormcrow. And just because it gets +1/+1 does not mean its base power isn't still a 1 cost or a 1 power or toughness. So
I recall a card from one of the other decks that was about getting rid of a card that has cards that have the same name.
yeah, exactly.
These decks are made to play against each other for sure. Thopter Engineer, 1/3 for 2 and a red, a little human artificer. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact. And artifact creatures you control have haste. Sweet.
Hasty. And we have Storm of Souls for 6. It's a sorcery. Return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit with flying in addition to its other types. Exile Storm of Souls. If they have entered the battlefield effects, all of those are going to happen as well.
Cool. And then we have Arthur again, the 4/5 haste. Definitely he is going to be helping you out and getting out those creatures once and then again from your hand. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Blade Splicer for 3. It's a little 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you get to create a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token. Golems you control have first strike.
Nice. Boss's Chauffeur. I like this card. It's for 4 and a white. He enters the battlefield with a number of 1/1 counters on it equal to 1 plus the number of other creatures you control. What? That could be a lot. Alliance. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you put a 1/1 counter on the boss's chauffeur. And when boss's chauffeur dies, you create 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens for each 1/1 counter on it.
Crazy.
Yep.
That one's almost high impact, but it's down here because it's kind of conditional.
It's conditional. Yeah.
I have cat hair in my mouth. For 3 mana, you can play Devilish Valet. Maybe it's driving your chauffeur. It's a 1/3 with trample and haste. It has alliance. which is just a keyword that basically says do what's on this card. Whenever another creature you control enters, double Devilish's Valet's power until the end of turn. So if 4 things enter, you're going to double it 4 times. So 2, then 4, then 8, then etc., etc.
I once attacked with him on Arena with more than 50,000.
Oh my gosh.
It was
That's
crazy. It
crazy.
was so cool that someone let me do that.
Felt good, right?
Yeah. Jacked Rabbit. It's a 1/2 with Ravenous. It's got X mana cost X and 1 and a white. So Ravenous is this creature enters with X plus 1 counters on it. If X is 5 or more, you get to draw a card when it enters. And when it attacks, you create a number of 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens equal to Jack Rabbit's power.
So make it as big as you can.
Yeah.
Plume Creed Escort. It's a 2 mana cost 2/1. It has flash, so you can play it at instant speed, which is always recommended, and flying. When it enters, target creature you control gains hexproof until the end of turn. So this is going to be one that you're going to save until they try to kill the thing that's working for you on the battlefield. You flash it in and say, actually, I'm going to give that thing hexproof, and you're not allowed to target it.
Yeah. Rapid Augmenter. It's a 1/3 with haste. Whenever another creature you control with base power 1 enters, it gains haste until end of turn. What? And whenever another creature you control enters, if it wasn't cast, you put a 1/1 counter on this guy, and he can't be blocked this turn. What?
What?
So it's
This
going to
is,
get pretty big.
as we're reading all these over again, I'm like, this is a more powerful deck than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, Restoration Angel for 4. It's a 3/4. This one also has flash, so play it when you need to. When it enters, you may exile target non-angel creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield
Nice.
under your control. So you're going to pick something that has a nice enter the battlefield effect that you want to kind of flash back, return it to the battlefield, and have it enter again. Or maybe you just want to save something that they're trying to destroy.
Yeah, you can declare it as a blocker and flash this in, and then that attacker is blocked, even though your creature isn't there anymore to block it. So
yeah, good
it
tricks.
doesn't matter. It was blocked. Rose Room Treasurer, 4/3 with Alliance for 3 and a red. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you create a treasure token. If this is the first or the second time this ability is resolved. Otherwise, you may pay X. When you do, Rose Room Treasurer deals X damage to any target. Could be good.
Nice. Could go in the removal too. Selfless Spirit for 2. It's a 2/1 with flying, and sacrifice it, and creatures you control gain indestructible till the end of turn. Board wipe, no thank you.
Yeah, and you don't have to pay to do that either, which is really nice. Yeah. Shield Broker, 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, put a shield counter on target non-commander creature you don't control. You gain control of that creature for as long as it has a shield counter on it. Use it against them.
Yeah. One more thing about Selfless Spirit that I just thought of. You can, so people are not, they're going to know you have it out on the battlefield. And so they're going to be waiting to do the board wipe to get rid of all of your stuff. But they're going to be talking about trying to kill your Selfless Spirit. So if somebody tries to kill your Selfless Spirit, in response, still sacrifice it to give all your creatures indestructible so that they can't at least that turn use their board wipe, because they may have like a removal spell and then they're going to do the board wipe right after. So just timing wise, if they're going to kill it anyway, then just sacrifice it in response.
Yeah.
So as far as land goes in this deck, there are 38 land. We recommend, again, 34 to 36. So there's some room for tweaking in that land. There's some decent basic land, or there's some decent non-basic lands in there as well. So you guys can take a look at those yourself. But what are our first tweaks, Madame?
Well, we have Impact Tremors. This is a great card to put in here. As soon as you have the red, it's nice to have access to this enchantment. For 1 and a red, which is cheap, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Impact Tremors deals 1 damage to each opponent. Ouch.
Yeah. I kind of think that this is a must put in this deck, just because there's so many tokens entering the battlefield that you just need to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
Enter the battlefield things. Maskwood Nexus is another great card for this deck, mainly because there's a lot of cards. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of cards, but if we go back to like the one that birds
Birds.
get +1/+1, now everything's a bird. So any of those things that benefit only one creature type, this just makes everything all creature types. So that's basically what it says. Creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creature spells that you control that are in your graveyard. You can also create some shape shifters if you like.
Chasm Skulker. It is in one of the other decks as well as the Maskwood Nexus. And this is whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on this guy. And when he dies, you create X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens, where X is the number of 1/1 counters, and they have island walk, which means if the other person has islands, then they can't be blocked. So plus their little 1/1s and more tokens, it's a great card to add to this deck for sure.
Yeah. A Niv Mizzet Parun for 6, basically 3 red and 3 blue, is a 5/5. It can't be countered. The reason we thought this guy could be in here is because there was a decent amount of draw in this, and some of those were ongoing or a lot of draw. And basically, whenever you draw a card, it deals 1 damage to any target. So take advantage of drawing those cards. That's even your card that you draw for turn. And then also, whenever a player casts an instant or a sorcery spell, you get to draw a card. So it adds some extra draw in there as well. So
yeah, it's any player too. So yeah. The Locust God. This is another benefiting from drawing cards thing. It's a 4/4 flying. When you draw a card, you create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token that has flying and haste. And you can pay 2 and a red and a blue to draw a card, then discard a card. And when he dies, you return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Never goes away.
never goes away.
So
many extra tokens that you would get with that and drawing cards, and yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Wizard class, there was one card that gave you no maximum hand size in that deck, but there was only one. So this one would give you a no maximum hand size. Again, this is another class card that levels up. Level 2, when this class becomes level 2, you get to draw 2 cards, and then whenever you draw a card, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. That one, not so much. That you want to, not necessarily what you want to use, but it's okay to give one thing like your commander extra counters or things like that. So it can't hurt.
War Leader's Call. This is an enchantment that punishes them for when you have creatures coming out, which is really nice. Plus, it gives all your creatures +1/+1. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, this card deals 1 damage to each opponent.
Yeah. Another one like Impact Tremors.
Yeah.
And then Rabble Rousing has Hideaway. It's a 5 mana cost enchantment. So basically, when you play it, you're going to look at the top 5 cards of your library, and then you're just going to pick one, and you're just going to like tuck it underneath there. You're just going to hide it away. Then, whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures that create that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. So it's just going to keep creating some citizens. Then if you control 10 or more creatures, which is going to be really easy in this deck, you can play the exile card without paying its mana cost. So it's free. So this would be a good get something for free. It's easy to get those tokens out there, and yeah.
Definitely. And another way to help with the whole token thing, if you have one, they're kind of expensive to get. It's an Anointed Procession. You have white, you have access to this card. This is a great one to put in this deck because if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many instead. Ugh, they're everywhere.
Yeah. Everywhere. Basri Ket for 3. He's a 3 mana cost, 3 loyalty planeswalker. You can +1 him to put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature, and it gains indestructible until the end of turn. That's nice. -2, whenever one or more non-token creatures attacks this turn, create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are also tapped and attacking. So benefit from those non-tokens that are attacking. And then we have a -6 that you get an emblem that at the beginning of combat on your turn, you get to create a 1/1 soldier creature token and put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So you might not want to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control if you have Tetsuko out, but you might not have that. And you might need to just make your tokens bigger. So different options. You can't just put everything, all your eggs in one basket, right?
Darien, King of Keldor. This is a 3/3 for 4 and 2 white human soldier. Whenever you're dealt damage, you may create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. So you're going to punish them for swinging at you by creating a whole bunch of tokens that are potentially going to hurt them. So
Yeah,
they might back off if you have this card out.
exactly. Deep Fathom Skulker. This is one that is devoid, so it doesn't have a color. But whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw, and then target creature can't be blocked this turn. So it's makes something unblockable and gets you more of that draw, which helps you with those draw abilities.
The Jace Arcane Strategist might be good to put in this one for 4 and 2 blue. It's a Jace Planeswalker. It says whenever you draw your second card each turn, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, and his +1 ability is drawing a card. So get you a little bit more card draw. And his -7 is creatures you control can't be blocked this turn.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Then we have a little mite. It's a toxic mite. Basically gives you some poison counters for your opponents. It can't block itself, so you're going to definitely swing with it. You can pay Phyrexian and tap to choose a color. Another target creature you control gains toxic and hexproof from that color until the end of turn. And it can't be blocked by creatures of that color this turn. So it's basically, again, we're just thinking of like going with that unblockable theme. If you liked that, then these would be things that you could add for unblockable.
Eldrazi Monument for 5. It's the artifact that says creatures you control get +1/+1, have flying and indestructible. It's a really annoying card, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you sacrifice a creature. Who cares? You got a million of them. If you can't, you have to sacrifice the Eldrazi Monument. So,
you will.
It's a good card.
Equipped creature get a skull clamp for 1. Equipped creature gets +1/-1. When equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. So this is something you're just going to throw on a token. It's going to automatically die, and you get to draw 2 cards.
And then we also were thinking of the Aven Wind Guide. This has flying and vigilance. It's a 2/3, but creature tokens you control have flying and vigilance. So that potentially is really good. Plus, this creature has Embalm, which means you can pay 4 and a blue and a white later on after it's in the graveyard and have it come out as a zombie instead. And you get to have it all over again.
So that's it for this time. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We definitely would love to hear how you would tweak this deck. We'll see you next time. And in the meantime,
Tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Thanks,
bye,
everyone.
guys.